Well, the whole government of Canada is like a parent around Christmas time, trying to keep things equal and balanced amongst all their children, the provinces. And that's been going on for a long time in terms of equalization payments to the various provinces. Well, guess what? Ontario's not getting as much as it used to, as it was expecting. Well, Quebec is getting more. Gregory Thomas of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation is going to be joining us to discuss. Yeah, it's all about money. Funny enough, it's not just gifts and nice Christmas cards, those kinds of things. You could send those to the provinces. That'd be too easy. It's money. How much does each one get, and how much does it cost us? Gregory Thomas is the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. He joins us now from Ottawa. And I guess we should do a little bit of a backstory on this in terms of equalization payments. Why are they in place?
Well, they were brought in the 1950s. By the Liberal government of Louis Saint Laurent. The idea was to allow for provinces to deliver comparable services. So if you're down east in one of the Atlantic provinces, for example, the federal government would give you equalization payments so that you could deliver the same healthcare, education, what have you, that you could in Ontario or Quebec, which at the time, back in the 1950s, was the most prosperous province in the country.
Okay. And then recently, there's been some concern some provinces would be cut back. And the federal government stepped up with what they call the total transfer protection theory out there. And that seems to be gone the way of the dodo. They've gotten rid of it. And as a result, Ontario is going to have less transferred to them. Is that the case?
I believe the rate of increase in the transfers that Ontario is getting is going to be reduced, but of course they also get the social transfer and the health transfer, and that's been going up at a steady clip, well in excess of inflation. So Ottawa is just starting to turn the taps down on this, and they're going to turn the taps way down in 2016, the year after the next federal election, when they're only going to be increasing their contributions by the same rate that the economy is growing. Right now, Ottawa is transferring money to the provinces faster than inflation and faster than the rate of growth in the economy. So as a proportion of the overall economy, transfers are growing faster than any other element of federal spending. It's a lot of money that's going out in transfers to the provinces. So it's a bit of for Ontario to cry foul at this point, because one of these temporary recession era programs was finally wound up, is out of line. But Ontario has always gotten the worst deal of any of the provinces as far as equalization payments are concerned. And other programs like employment insurance, Ontario has paid out $75 billion more since 1981 than they've collected in benefits. So it's a legitimate complaint that Ontario has, but this recent adjustment isn't the big deal that Ontario is making it out to be.
Well, it is substantial, $19.2 billion, but they were expecting $640 million more, right?
Right. So they're still getting a substantial transfer, and of course they're heading into an election campaign probably next spring. So, and they have the biggest budget deficit of any provincial or state government in North America. So, every little bit helps when you're trying to grapple with out of control spending, as the Ontario Liberals are, and they're obviously not getting the kind of help they'd like to be getting from the Ottawa government.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is the breakdown on a per capita basis. And we just had some of the boards up there. That 19.2, well, Quebec is getting $9.3 billion, up from 7.8. Quebec gets the increase. Ontario didn't, obviously. But then when you look at it on a per capita basis, Prince Edward Island is getting $360 million. But that translates to, I'm just trying to do the math here, PEI, $3,735 per person. And in Quebec, you're looking at almost $2,400, $1,000 more per person than they get in Ontario.
Yeah, Ontario gets a rough deal on equalization. Of course, the western provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta, British Columbia, get nothing. They actually pay into equalization. And Ontario as the heartland of Canada, always used to be the contributor to the equalization fund, in some years as much of a contributor as Alberta taxpayers were. So, and of course, we all hope for a return to those days when Ontario is prosperous and has the kind of capacity to support Canada the way she always has for decades.
Yeah. Don't or you better cross your fingers on that one, given what's happening in terms of the manufacturing base. Gregory, stay right there. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll get more on this whole subject as well as social media reaction.
Money, 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 there is nothing like a newly minted pound. Money, 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 money. Everyone must hanker for the butchness of a banker. It's accountancy that makes the world go round, 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 round. You can keep your Marxist ways, for it's only just a phase. Money, money, money makes the world go round. Money, 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 money.
Money makes the world go round. Money solves Canada's problems. That was Monty Python, the Money song. And Gregory Thomas is a man not unfamiliar with money and how it works at the federal level. He's the federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. You know, when you look at these things happening, do you think it's justified that Ontario was cut back from their expectations?
Well, the equalization program, let's face it, the equalization program is a mess, and some of the recent studies that have been done show that there are a number of things that nobody talks about when they talk about the equalization program. For example, the fact that a lot of the provinces in Atlantic Canada actually are over-equalized. They have higher spending on education, higher spending on healthcare. They have more government employees in relation to the population, more bureaucracy, more debt, and even though the federal government has been taxing Ontario and taxing the West to provide equalization payments to other parts of the country, notably Atlantic Canada and especially Quebec. I mean, Quebec gets over a vast proportion of its budget from federal transfer payments, which Ontario does not. Alberta certainly doesn't, and yet Quebec has the highest debt load of any province in Canada. And the Atlantic Canada governments are also heavily indebted. So when you compare the equalization, some of the bailouts that they've been talking about in Europe, for example, they've talked about bailing out Greece or bailing out Ireland or what have you. Every time Europe steps in and bails out one of these economies, they come in with a strict austerity program. They insist on moving these national governments into balanced budgets. And in fact, Europe just adopted a treaty. If you can imagine this, 24 different countries with 23 different languages all signed on to a treaty that mandates moves towards reducing deficits and balanced budgets in exchange for the backstop of the European government. Here in Canada, we just mail checks to provincial governments willy-nilly every year, year in and year out, with no accountability, no accountability on spending, no accountability on borrowing, no accountability on debt levels. And so we have this bizarre situation where provinces with balanced budgets and prosperous economies are being taxed heavily to send money to provinces that are in deep deficits with declining economies, and yet there's no obligation on the part of the provinces receiving all these equalization payments to do anything about it.
That's called sending good money after bad, as they say. Let's get some social media reaction. Gina Phillips is in Calgary. Good morning, Gina.
Good morning, Pat. There were some angry Calgarians on the road on my drive into work today. Maybe it's because of this. I don't know. Just saying. Just saying. No, maybe it was all the snow and the ice. That could be part of it. But nonetheless, there are some angry Albertans over this Quebec getting a bigger slice of the equalization pie. It is the topic of our web poll today on sunnewsnetwork.ca, so we are getting a lot of reaction to this, Pat. I'll tell you what the results to our vote is so far. So we're asking, does Canada's equalization structure reward economic success or financial failure?
That was exactly Gregory Thomas's point. Okay, keep going.
Right. Well, 96% of people so far today say it rewards financial failure. instead. And over 600 people have now voted in that poll. It is going to be open all day long, though. So head to our website, sunnewsnetwork.ca. It's at the bottom right of the website homepage. And I want to read a tweet, which also goes along with something you guys were just talking about, which is just that. Randy says, smaller equalization payments, yes. Just think, would you give money to people who waste it and have no economic plan or good sense? Kind of good point. I don't know. Is it time to revamp these equalization payments? Some people think so.
Yeah, including Gregory Thomas. Gina, thanks so much. Let's get back to Gregory Thomas. How would you change it? Would you? I mean, you can't just willy-nilly stop equalizations. What do you think, Gregory? How would you change it? Scale it back?
Well, I think you have to look at the money what you're spending the money on. I mean, what we see in Atlantic Canada and Quebec is that every dollar that gets shipped into those provinces is immediately sucked up by government employees unions who demand higher and higher government services and interest groups. For example, Quebec has the lowest tuition in the country. It's less than half of what Albertans pay for post-secondary education. And yet when the Quebec government tried to institute a modest increase in tuition payments, you had radicals rioting in the streets and civil unrest, and you know that government lost the election. So a sensible program for the federal government to help these provinces would be to direct these payments to reducing their debt load, reducing the amount of debt they have, so that they reduce the amount of interest that they're paying to offshore investors and to people who own the bonds of all these provinces. Because unlike Europe or you know any sensible federal jurisdiction, the federal government doesn't restrict the amount that these provinces can borrow. So on the one hand, they're taking billions in transfer payments, and on the other hand, they're going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. So number one, the federal government should help these provinces get out of debt. Yeah. If they have lower debts, then they have lower interest payments, and then they have more capacity to cover their own budgets from their own tax revenue that they raise on their own territory.
Get them the message quickly, Gregory. Thank you.
We're doing our best.
Yeah. Gregory Thomas, Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.